Good morning, guys. So we are back, environmental social justice, talking still about wildfires. Yes, we continue to talk about this because the entire western side of the country seems to be on
Shit
fire.
burning up.
Shit burning up. And this is not good, primarily. And one of the things we're going to talk about with this is the particulate matter and the pollution and stuff we're breathing into our lungs. And it kind of struck me because a girlfriend of mine who lives in Seattle, she's got three small kids. And she actually posted on Facebook recently saying, I am very worried about what my children are breathing. And our air quality has been determined to be the worst in the world. This has never happened before. Yes, California's had shitty air quality. We're working on it. We're fixing it. But now we have the worst in the world. There's something called purple air out there, Joy AQMD. But one of the things I wanted to ask Joy about, Miss Joy Langford, environmental consultant.
Good morning, rise
Um,
and shine, everyone.
Good morning. So we've had, there's been a lot of chatter out there about these wildfires having nothing to do with climate change. People are saying that the fires are stopping at the border, failing to understand the map was a US-based map, but that's for another discussion. They're saying it has nothing to do with climate change. So my first question, which is going to be a real softball to you, do you believe that these are related to climate change?
Well, let me tell you, if it's not related to climate change, somebody better be putting a lot more money and research into figuring out what exactly is going on. Climate change is climate change. It's exactly what we're experiencing. If you've lived on this earth for, the last 5 years even, the amounts of fires, the magnitude of fires, not to mention all of the storms. You see how many storms are waiting out in the Atlantic and the Gulf Coast, ready just to rear in such a
Oh,
short
yeah.
period of time. Uh, if somebody can give me another logical explanation as to why this is, I'm
Well,
looking
that
for it. But
you
nobody's
hit the nail on
not.
the head. Logic. A lot of
Well, I
people are
think
just. Go ahead.
the fires, I think a lot of these fires, I saw an article, and I don't know if it's true or not, but some of these fires were actually caused by it, people with issues, shall we say? Like some of them are
Arsonists.
arson. And so it's a weird thing because like the fires are being caused by human ignorance, for lack of a better word. But it's just how far they're spreading is obviously a drastic result of climate change.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, you're talking like hundreds of thousands of acres. So it's just kind of like this whole, everything is
5 million.
intertwined. And it's 5 million acres.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that.
it's everywhere, especially in our state, because our state is more arid than most. We don't have,
Stupid
lots of
desert.
rain here or there.
We are
So
stupid desert, yes.
yeah, so we are paying the price, and we already have a large fire budget. We do have a large air quality budget, which is one of the highest organization line items on the state budget. We're not trying to spend this money to fight fires and other types of climate change going on just for the hell of it. We've got too much other
Well,
stuff going on. We've got
real
a
quick.
homeless population. We've got all kinds of stuff going on in the state. It's by no coincidence that we are, fighting these things are some of the highest budget items on the state budget. I
Well,
just would
when you
really
talk about.
encourage somebody to come up with something, better than terrorist acts taking place. No, these aren't terrorist acts. These are people doing gender reveals in the bushes. Like,
Okay, so that was
this is
one, and it was a terrible situation. But going back
right.
to the budget, so why are we not doing controlled burns? I mean, I know I'm an environmentalist, but I'm not necessarily a tree hugger, meaning if we do need to do controlled burns, we should do controlled burns. If we do need to clean things out, we need to clean things out. But then people say, well, what about the spotted owl? I love birds. My favorite bird's an owl. But if you need to actually clean this stuff up so we don't become a tinderbox, what's the right answer?
Yeah,
I don't know.
exactly. As far as how the budget is working, we're trying to, as of the last 3 years, with all of this wildfire stuff going on, it's culpability. Who's responsible? We got the insurance companies and the utilities involved, and you see where that got us. They just want to
Don't
throw
be
their
banging on the insurance companies. They're not that
well,
bad.
it comes down to the entire state is structured on insurance, on utilities, environmental issues, the highest budget lines, and it's, everybody's trying to pass the buck as to where money should come from for all of these. And, prevention seems to be pretty low on the totem pole. I know when we were fighting the utilities as a state, we're just asking them to push back brush and power and utility lines. And you would think that it was just an act, that was beyond belief to even ask them to do such things. And then the cost measures that come along with it. And then we go back to, again, who's responsible? Why should we pay this? Let insurance take care of it. No, let the utilities take care of it. No, let the government take care of it. Until the point where
we could all work together. Crazy thought.
Yeah, it's a crazy thought, but you know how people are when money is on the line, everybody's clutching their purse. And that's pretty much the situation we're in.
But it's funny because I think every single one of these things is tied together. And that's the part that nobody knows how to figure out, because it's like you can't do controlled burns because you want to protect the animals. Well, guess what? We've taken the land from the animals to build housing because we now have fires, which have forced people to go further and further out and rebuild. So it's like we're spinning our wheels and we just keep doing the exact same thing again and again and again. And so, but yeah, so then we want the utility companies, which we all know I'm not a huge fan of. We have to have the more utilities because we're building further and further out, which is taking the land. So we've done this to ourselves, and we keep going in this vicious cycle, which is we're never going to get out of it. Let's just be honest. I mean, we're not planning for a future. We're just planning for survival. That's all we're doing. I mean, you look at what happened.
Yeah, what we need to change.
Well, that's just it. I mean, look at just look at in LA when they widened the 405 because that's going to make the biggest impact in the world. No, it didn't. It didn't do shit. It actually gave more traffic on the road.
Very true.
And so it's like, because why? We went further out into Santa Clarita. We're going further and further out because we can't afford to live here, which then brings us back to the homeless issue. So it's just like we're in this downward trajectory, which is I don't think we're going to get out of. I'll be perfectly blunt. We're not.
And
some serious change.
One of the groups that I really want to tag here, and I don't want to come off as being accusatory, is I deal with a lot of the environmental justice groups located in the community. And instead of all of the government money being given to them to come to community meetings, to support their causes, a lot of this is different nonprofit organizations loading people up into buses to come to like air quality meetings and various meetings, and they are paid for doing so. But if we're doing a serious commitment, that money shouldn't be going into people's pockets. That's what other social programs are for. That
like
money
EDD, that worked out great.
Like what?
Well, no, the EDD fraud. Sorry, that whole thing in California is a whole mess, and that's another story. But talking about air quality, just real quick on the air quality though, AQMD, they're putting out reports of all the crap in the air. The particulate matter, meaning actual particles we are inhaling that will attach itself to your lungs. So we have to be really cognizant of that. AQMD brings out these reports. What do you see, Joy, with respect to, should we be concerned? Is it really that bad? Is it going to clear up? Is there a bright side that I'm just missing? Because right now it's looking pretty goddamn awful.
Yeah, and you've got to remember, especially during this season, with COVID being a lung disorder primarily, the smoke in the air, and then we're going into flu season as well. So I'm expecting from the human element, complete chaos. They say that we're going to double they say that we're going to double the amount of COVID deaths from the 200,000 that we hit yesterday. By winter, it should be closer to 400,000. But the pair that with me being a hypochondriac, I will be calling you every day, telling you I think I need a COVID test. You know, air
I
quality
got the
is something
COVID.
that's very, very important. And with lungs, everything is about lungs these days. You've got the firemen out there, you know, fighting the fires. You've got us, you know, fighting the COVID situation, having to stay indoors, employment, travel and commute, housing. How is housing going to provide better air quality? Most of the houses in California, because of the climate, don't have air conditioning. Many of the units, and like Joel can speak to that.
Yeah.
You know, we've got to figure out, and it's going
Well,
to cost a lot of money. It won't be
let's actually
something.
bring Joel into that. So one of
Yeah.
the things with, the fires and the air pollution, so we completely totaled our electric grid because people are jacking up their AC. It's getting hotter. What happens when it gets hotter? Everyone turns on the air conditioning. This is only going to get worse, not better. So utility bills are going up, cost of living's going up, rent's going up because everything trickles down.
Mhm.
So, cost of living in California,
It's
real estate
absurd.
market,
It's
it's
absurd.
absurd. And I mean, do you see people leaving LA, going to other places? I mean, talk. What do you
Yes,
see out
yes
there?
and no. Yes and no. I think we're seeing more renters leaving right now because they're the ones
Oh,
who can't. The people who live here they live here. They have their properties. They own them. I don't see too many people leaving, and in fact, I actually see a lot of people coming here.
oh,
Um, yeah, because if people are able to work virtually, they can go wherever they want, and that's what's happening. Is especially from like San Francisco and New York, different
oh yeah.
areas that have been stuck in high rises and they didn't have outdoor space. That's the one thing about Southern California is we have sunshine. We have yard spaces that are way too big for what we need. So people come here for that. They want to be outdoors, and we have great weather. I mean, maybe not when it's
Yeah.
122 degrees in Woodland Hills, but that's another issue. Um, so I think the cost of
Has
living here
nothing
is
to do with climate change.
no, not at all. Well, Woodland Hills has always been surface of the sun hot. It just has been, but this year was ridiculous.
Hotter than hot. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't think we're not seeing people leaving. We are, but the people who are leaving, we're still seeing a big influx coming in. And we're seeing people on the secondary home market. So you've got the big vacation areas. Those are skyrocketing even more than we are. Like
Oh
there was
yeah.
actually an article that I read this morning. I think the cost of housing went up, is it 12% or 6% over the past year? I mean, for home sales. I mean, it's absurd. So yeah, all these utilities are getting bigger, but that brings up the other issue of our economic inequity that's happening as well. So I mean, all these things are intertwined. They're all intertwined.
And talking about the economic inequity, we have people that live in subpar housing in subpar environments with poor air quality, poor
Mhm.
housing quality, probably asbestos, mold, lead, all of those lovely things intertwined. The
Like,
air pollution
yeah,
is probably worse because of where they are. The soil that they play in children's playgrounds, probably contaminated.
yeah.
Um, we can't fix. I mean, I personally can't fix it. I don't know how to fix it. I'm generally the one that tries to, belittle, misfix it, and change these things. I don't. I'm at a loss. I really am. I
I
don't
don't
know
know
how
how
to
we
make these
fix things
changes.
anymore. I'll be perfectly blunt. I don't know if we can fix some of the damage that we've done. I mean, the glaciers aren't coming back. We're just not. That's done. I mean, the stuff
Yeah.
that's melting, it's not coming back. So I mean, when you look at cities like Miami, you've got the rising sea levels. Those areas are
Yep.
flooding more and more frequently. So all these places that are
Ports are
now on the
flooding.
coastline, that's just it. So they're talking about building these higher seawalls to keep the water out from in these neighborhoods. I'm
Because
like,
that
okay, we did it,
works so great.
but we
Seawalls
did
don't
it.
always work. Great
No,
infrastructure doesn't always work. That shit gives away. It crumbles. I
Katrina.
was on a
Yeah,
well, I was on a webinar this morning with the UN.
yeah.
Started at 6 a.m. because I'm in the States. But it was a 6 a.m. call,
No,
and one of the things I love is talking about green infrastructure. So mangroves, corals, artificial oysteries, wetlands, things
no,
like
we
that
killed
where
that.
people are actually, it's awesome, but you can't have it everywhere. So perfect example, San Francisco. They're in trouble. They are eroding quite a bit, flooding in areas as well. You can't mangroves aren't going to grow, coral reefs aren't going to grow. Oyster beds, no, shit's not going to grow there either. And you have shipping lanes. You have a bridge you have to get under. Your
And the
only
water's
option's
too
gray
hot.
scape.
Let me look at the coral reefs in Australia. The water's too hot for them
They're
to grow.
bleaching. Yeah,
So it's like,
yeah.
are we just gonna make a lot of ice and just dump in the ocean to like cool the thing off? Like, I mean, we've done this to ourselves. I mean, I know that was stupid. That was
We
very
did.
stupid. But
I actually I took a course called Ecobiogeochemistry at BU.
That
God,
sounds
what a
fun.
horrible name and it sucks. My professor changed it to ocean processes. But he actually, I was fading in and out of class one day, but I remember he said, if you dump enough lead in the ocean, we can do another ice age. And I'm like, oh shit, really? Because it has to do with this chain reaction of chemical processes of plankton and fish and shit like that. But it was interesting. So funny you said dump a bunch of ice in the ocean. Maybe it's dumping a bunch of lead. I don't know.
Believe
I
that
would
wasn't
advise
toxic.
against that until maybe some of that chemistry's worked through. But
But it's like
no, it is interesting.
we're not looking at the big picture. We're not.
No,
We're not.
we never
We're
have.
not.
We've always looked at our own
No.
backyard. How does this affect me
Yeah.
right
And we always
now?
look at band-aids. We don't look at true systemic change. And that's what has to happen. I mean, everything, I mean, just look at where we live. We live in LA. So they're talking about doing this whole massive metro system. It's already out of date by the time it's built. I mean, let's just be honest. It's not.
How many
and it's-
people ride Metro even? It's a good
Well,
idea.
I did before things shut
Yeah,
down.
Wendy, you were
Yeah.
actually one of the only people
Yeah.
I know. She is
Hey,
being
I
very
support
honest
my
here.
Metro.
But where does it go? That's the thing about LA
Took
is
me
that they're
downtown.
looking. No, but I'm saying, right, but how convenient is it for people to get to? Like, you want people to use these systems. They're not convenient. You don't want to walk, you don't want to walk 5 or 6 blocks to take a bus, then take the bus a few miles to get to the train station, or you're going to drive your car to drive for an hour looking around a parking at a limited parking space. So they're trying to build this whole infrastructure. And this is what I'm trying to say. These are Band-Aid solutions as opposed to looking at LA from an aerial. And again, I'm not an engineer, but it seems like common sense would say we are one big city made up of a bunch of small cities. So it's almost like you have to
Yes.
put smaller infrastructure in all these smaller cities, and then those get connected together.
Didn't you come up with the idea of like each of these little cities, like Santa Monica, Culver, being little spokes, or rather hubs, and the spokes
Pretty
would connect
much.
them? I think
That's what-
I think you were the one that mentioned
Yeah,
that.
I mean, because to me that's what makes sense. Because it's like if I need to I look at like when we lived in Boston or when I lived in DC, I could get on the subway and go a few blocks within my neighborhood, and then I would go to one main hub, and that would transfer me out to everything else.
Yeah.
But what they're trying to do here, it seems, is they're just trying to do these long lines. It's like, no, because Beverly Hills, if you want to get from anywhere in Beverly Hills, nobody's going to take the metro or walk to the metro, then walk to the bus, and then take all that time. They're just not going to do it.
I'll be
But they're not
curious
gonna do
to see how COVID affects Metro.
And that's
Oh,
the
that's
other
why.
thing.
Well,
I
like,
stopped.
I don't know when the next time is. The bus is already scuzzy. So,
Yeah,
I-
they're working on it.
Well,
I mean, full
that's very
disclosure,
true.
I'm on LA Metro's sustainability committee, and they're working on it. They're keeping it clean. You have to enter from the back of the bus now. You can't go in the front where the driver is. Masks on at all times. The buses are crowded. I see them go by, so people are now getting back on. When COVID first hit, they actually restricted bus service because no one was riding the bus. But now that people with their day jobs do have to go back, they don't have this set up. They can't turn on a laptop. So it is coming back. Ridership is way down.
Oh.
But one of the things they're talking about is making it free. Making Metro free. What's going to happen?
Oh, we're all going to pay for that.
yeah.
Well, we're all going to pay for it, but it's now going to become the Homeless Express. I mean, that's what's going to happen. It already was. I would take the bus I would get on it around 6:30 in the morning, and it was quite crowded. But that was just kind of came with the territory.
And then just to bring it back, so we'll go full circle now. So then you got to have people who are going to be outside. But to talk about the public transportation system, to get to it, you want people to walk outside. Now they're going to be outside in the air that we shouldn't be breathing because of the bad fires and everything that's going on.
Yeah.
We're just screwed right now. I'm like, there is no. I feel
Baby
pessimistic. I don't
steps.
mean
That's why I
to,
keep telling people
but-
baby steps. I mean, it's not as fucked up as it could be.
No, but
Well,
we're
we have
getting
to
there.
find more line items on the state budget, and some sort of way there's going to have to be a shift in people's budgets that makes it happen. So, good luck with that. They did take the bullet train off the budget. So,
Did they?
Oh, is that finally
Yeah.
off?
yeah, I think
shit,
about a
that took
month
long.
month and a half ago, which we really need that money for other things right now with all of the emergency.
Oh, yeah, and it was a train to nowhere. I mean, I first heard about it in 2008 when I first moved out here, and I was like, wow, what a great idea. LA to San Francisco in like 2 hours. And then I realized that they were building the rail, like, going nowhere. Stations in the middle of nowhere. So that made no sense. And, I was coming from New York, and I'm like, this seems odd, but what did I know? I was new. But I guess
From
we're coming up on
California.
our 20 minutes, unfortunately. But this was a good chat, guys. Thank you for, we didn't get too much into air pollution and AQMD, but
We did.
we're
There's
polluting
always next
ourselves.
week.
We
We're
did.
probably going to continue on this thread for a while because California, we got 5 million acres burned, no slowing in sight. And we got firebugs out there who are just lighting them. Yeah.
But the thing is, also remember, it's like all these issues are tied together. So it's like the AQMD is it's gonna, the air quality, whatever the MD part stood for, it's all gonna be tied together. And it's like, so one thing leads to another, and I think that's the biggest issue that we're trying to discuss, in my opinion, is every single thing is tied together. So it really is going to come down to changing human behavior. Good luck with that shit.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, fun.
So Andrew Garalia said cost of a ticket was 6 times more costly than Southwest SAC to LA. Cost of what ticket? Plane ticket, train ticket, bullet ticket? I'm assuming train, maybe. And yeah, Amtrak's expensive. I used to take it from Boston to New York a lot, just for convenience, but the train ticket was just as expensive as if I were to fly out of LaGuardia. I just didn't want to have to
Florida
do
to DC one. That was fun.
That's a long way. I mean, I love trains.
Sure.
I mean, I have family history in trains, but it's a bullet train. Oh, the bullet train was going to be 6 times more costly than Southwest. Well, that's just stupid.
Oh.
That is going to just throw it into a death spiral right then and there. But on that happy note, thank you guys. This was
See you
fun.
next week.
And I look forward to future chit chats next week on fire, destruction, and death spirals and such.
Good times.
Keeping you informed.
Something light.
Baby steps. Something light and fun and airy, Good start to the Wednesday. Okay, guys. Thank you so much. Take care. Love you both.
Bye.